What does it really mean when space-time itself ripples as if the universe were humming like a hidden song? How can light behave like a stream of particles and, at the very same time, spread out like a wave? And why does the simple act of watching change what happens? From the faint echoes of gravitational waves to the riddles of the double-slit experiment, physics keeps pulling us back to the same place. The edge where reality stops behaving the way we think it should. Janna Levin is more than a physicist. She's one of the rare voices turning the universe into a story. A professor of physics and astronomy at Barnard College, Columbia University, her research stretches across some of the deepest questions in cosmology: the nature of black holes, the role of chaos in shaping the cosmos, the topology of the universe, and whether space itself might be infinite. Her career has taken her from Berkeley to Cambridge, and even to Oxford's Ruskin School of Fine Art as its first scientist in residence. A hint at how naturally she bridges science with culture. That dual role defines her. Levin publishes serious work in cosmology, but she's just as present on NPR, the BBC, or TED, reframing physics as part of the human story. In her books, How the Universe Got Its Spots, Black Hole Blues, and Black Hole Survival Guide, she blends the life of a scientist with the poetry of cosmic questions. Even her novel, A Madman Dreams of Turing Machines, fuses literature and mathematics in a way that earned her awards in both worlds. Her TED Talk, The Sound the Universe Makes, captured her sensibility perfectly. Gravitational waves, ripples in spacetime from colliding black holes, become not just data, but music. The universe doesn't sit in silence, Levin says. It sings. And now, for the first time, we can hear it. In everything she does, Levin insists that physics belongs alongside art and literature. She shows us that the universe is not only to be explained, but also to be felt, and that science, at its best, is part of culture's shared story. Gravitational waves are ripples in space-time itself, tiny distortions that race across the universe whenever gravity is pushed to its extremes. Black holes spiraling into each other, neutron stars colliding, supernovae tearing themselves apart. These are the moments violent enough to shake the fabric of reality. Albert Einstein predicted them back in 1916, but for a century they remained a ghostly idea. Only now are we beginning to hear them. Unlike light, which can be blocked, scattered, or dimmed by matter, gravitational waves pass straight through stars, galaxies, and clouds of gas almost untouched. That makes them unique messengers. Light shows us what the surface of an object looks like. Gravitational waves carry the hidden rhythm of the catastrophe itself. A neutron star merger arrives as a rising chirp, each orbit faster and tighter until the final smash. A supernova sends out an entirely different pulse. Every signal is a fingerprint, a memory of an event we could never otherwise witness. What does it mean for space-time to ripple? Imagine a ring of particles floating freely in space. As a wave passes, the ring stretches one way while squeezing the other, then flips. By the time it reaches Earth, the distortion is unimaginably small, less than the width of a single atom across the distance from here to the Sun. And yet, it's there. Hints first appeared in the 1970s, when a binary pulsar slowly lost energy exactly as predicted if gravitational waves were real. The Nobel Prize followed, but it was only in September 2015 that we caught one directly. Two black holes colliding over 1 billion years ago sent a ripple that reached Earth and nudged the detectors of LIGO ever so slightly. Humanity had finally heard the universe sing. The technology to do this borders on the impossible. LIGO and its European partner Virgo fire lasers down tunnels kilometers long, bouncing light between mirrors so sensitive they can pick up shifts smaller than a proton reel sound clip E. Earlier detectors tried to listen through vibrating cylinders of metal, but it was interferometers that finally cracked the silence. Since that first detection, gravitational wave astronomy has exploded. Each new signal reveals hidden corners of the cosmos, measuring black holes, probing neutron stars, even helping us track how fast the universe itself is expanding. What Einstein once wrote down as a mathematical curiosity has become something much more, a brand new sense for humanity. For the first time, we're not just looking at the universe, we're listening to it. The signal came from a cosmic collision on an unimaginable scale. Two black holes, each dozens of times heavier than the Sun, spiraling into each other at nearly half the speed of light. In their final heartbeat, 3 suns worth of mass was transformed into pure gravitational energy, radiating more power than every star in the visible universe combined. It happened 1.3 billion years ago. By the time it reached us, the tremor stretched and squeezed Earth by less than a fraction of a proton's width, and yet we built instruments sensitive enough to notice. LIGO works by splitting laser beams down 2 4-kilometer tunnels, bouncing them between mirrors suspended in perfect stillness. Normally, the beams cancel each other out. But when a wave passes, one arm lengthens, the other shortens, and light flickers with the faint signature of a black hole's death dance. This wasn't just another discovery, it was the birth of a new sense. For the first time, we weren't just looking at the cosmos through light, we were listening to it through gravity itself. 2 years later, when LIGO and Virgo caught the crash of neutron stars and matched it with a gamma-ray burst, the universe gave us both sight and sound, opening the era of multi-messenger astronomy. What began as a footnote in Einstein's math is now one of humanity's most profound achievements, a new way of perceiving reality itself. The double-slit experiment is often called the most mysterious demonstration in all of physics, and with good reason. At first glance, it seems almost trivial. Shine a beam of light at a barrier with 2 narrow slits, then watch what appears on the screen behind it. If light behaved like tiny marbles fired through the slits, you'd expect to see 2 neat piles where the beams landed. Instead, you get something utterly strange. A series of alternating bright and dark bands, like ripples in a pond overlapping with one another. What should have been simple dots of light becomes an interference pattern, proof that light acts like a wave. When Thomas Young first revealed this in 1801, it was a revelation. At the time, Isaac Newton's view still dominated. Light was thought to be a stream of particles. Christian Huygens had proposed that it might be waves instead, but it was Young's experiment, elegant, undeniable, that shifted the conversation. By splitting light into 2 paths and letting them recombine, he proved it could interfere with itself, something only a wave could do. The results stunned Newton's followers and helped establish the wave theory of light as the foundation of 19th century physics. For a century, the experiment seemed settled. Light was a wave. End of story. Then the 20th century arrived and the story twisted again. In 1905, Albert Einstein explained the photoelectric effect, the way light can knock electrons off a metal surface, by proposing that light also comes in discrete packets of energy, later called photons. Suddenly, light wasn't just a wave, it behaved like particles too. The tension deepened when Clinton Davison and Lester Germer in 1927 showed that electrons, which everyone assumed were particles of matter, could also form interference patterns when passed through slits. George Pagey Thompson, working independently, confirmed it. Matter, hard, tangible, seemingly solid matter, was acting like a wave. As experiments multiplied, the strangeness only grew. Atoms did it. Molecules did it. Even large organic compounds with thousands of atoms could be coaxed into showing interference patterns if carefully isolated. And the weirdest twist of all, the interference appeared even when particles were sent one at a time. Fire photons through a double slit slowly enough, and each lands as a single dot on the screen. But let enough accumulate, and the dots don't form 2 neat piles. They build into a wave-like interference pattern, as if each particle somehow passed through both slits simultaneously, interfering with itself before landing in one spot. It was as if nature itself couldn't decide whether light and matter were waves or particles. The truth, it seemed, was that they were both, or perhaps neither. They were something deeper, something quantum, behaving one way when left unobserved and another when measured. Place detectors at the slits to check which path a particle takes, and the interference vanishes. The particle chooses, it lands in one pile or the other. No pattern, no wave. But remove the detectors, and the interference returns, as if the particle took both paths at once until forced to decide. Richard Feynman famously said the double-slit experiment contains the central mystery of quantum mechanics, and that if you can truly understand it, you can understand the whole subject. What he meant is that this simple setup exposes wave-particle duality, superposition, and the strange role of measurement in quantum physics, the foundations of an entirely new way of thinking about reality. Physicists use the concept of the wave function to describe this. The wave function doesn't tell you where a particle is, but rather the probabilities of where it could be. It evolves like a wave, spreading out and overlapping, capable of producing interference. But the moment you measure it, the wave function collapses into a single outcome. Before measurement, the particle isn't in one slit or the other. It exists in a superposition of possibilities, taking both paths at once. After measurement, the quantum haze collapses into a fact. Over the decades, countless variations of the experiment have been performed, each one reinforcing the mystery. G.I. Taylor showed in 1909 that even at the lowest possible light levels, the interference pattern still emerged photon by photon. Klaus Johnson demonstrated the effect with electrons in 1961, cementing the fact that matter itself obeys wave mechanics. Modern physicists have stretched the limits further, performing double-slit experiments with antimatter, with whole molecules, and with sophisticated interferometers that split and recombine beams in intricate ways. Each time, the results return to the same conclusion. The quantum world is universal. The difficulty is keeping quantum systems isolated long enough. The larger the object, the easier it is for the environment to disturb it. Heat, vibrations, stray electromagnetic fields all cause decoherence, collapsing the wave function before the experiment can reveal interference. But as long as isolation is maintained, the rules of quantum physics apply. Even objects big enough to push the boundary between quantum and classical can still interfere with themselves, hinting that the line between the two is thinner than we imagine. Why does it matter? Because the double-slit experiment challenges the bedrock of our intuition. In classical physics, particles have positions and velocities, waves have amplitudes and frequencies, and the world is definite. In quantum physics, particles exist as clouds of probability, waves collapse into points, and observation itself seems to play an active role in determining outcomes. It's not just a question of what the universe is doing, it's a question of what the universe is before we look at it. And this isn't just philosophy. The mathematics of superposition and interference is the same mathematics behind lasers, semiconductors, and quantum computers. Every time you swipe a smartphone or stream a video, you are leaning on the physics that comes directly from the lessons of the two slits. The interference that baffled Young, that confounded Einstein, that Feynman called the mystery, it has become the foundation of modern technology. Yet the philosophical shadow remains. What does it mean for reality if particles do not have definite properties until measured? Does the act of observation create reality itself? Or does the wave function describe countless parallel worlds, each branching with every possibility? The Copenhagen interpretation, the many worlds interpretation, pilot waves, all are attempts to wrestle with what the double-slit experiment shows us. None fully remove the strangeness. More than 2 centuries after Thomas Young first split a beam of light, the double-slit experiment continues to unsettle us. It's endlessly repeatable, endlessly puzzling, and endlessly profound. Each new version reaffirms that the quantum world is not confined to the microscopic, but underlies all of reality. The world we live in, the world we touch and see, is built from the same rules that allow photons and electrons to walk 2 paths at once. The power of the double-slit experiment lies in its simplicity. With nothing more than a light source, a barrier, and a screen, it reveals the deepest cracks in our classical worldview. It shows us a universe where reality is fluid, probabilities are fundamental, and measurement itself shapes what is real. In its elegant strangeness, it is a reminder that the universe is not bound by our intuition. It is far stranger and far richer than we ever imagined. The universe doesn't just shine, it sings, ripples, and reshapes itself under our gaze. Gravitational waves let us hear cosmic collisions, while the double-slit experiment forces us to rethink reality itself. Together they remind us that physics isn't just equations, it's a mystery unfolding, daring us to keep asking deeper questions.